is important to ask. Another thing that's important to ask yourself is, are you creating content to showcase your work? Or is there a clear message that you want to put out there through the content that you're creating? So is it just about, okay, this is the kind of work that we do, and so we're going to put our work out there. So, if there's any workshop, is there a particular activity that you did with your beneficiaries? Are you putting out content just to showcase your work? Or are you trying to achieve a specific goal of fundraising, of recruitment, of finding more potential partnerships and collaborations for your organization? So try to be more specific with what you're trying to achieve. And again, the third question is, how are you measuring the success of your communication? Is it through the frequency of high quality posts that you're creating? So is it just about how consistent are you with your communications plan and the quality of content that you're putting out there? Or is it that is the content that you're creating helping you achieve something, right? So it goes always back to what are we achieving from this? So today I'm going to take you through a step-by-step process, a simple step-by-step process of how you can build a concrete communication strategy that is very goal-oriented and that takes you right back to your organizational goals. So to start us with today, I would like to know a little bit about the organizations that are part of this webinar. So I'm just going to launch a poll of 2 questions, and I would, if you could please answer those. So the first question is, do you have a communication strategy in place for the year? So I'd like to know how many of you have a communication strategy in place. And the second one is, what is your communication strategy centered around? Now, the second question is multiple choice, so you could sort of have multiple options that you choose. Great. I'm happy to see more yeses. Okay, we'll give it 1 more minute. I hope everyone can see the polls. Okay, great. Okay, so I still have some responses coming in, but from what I can see is most of you do have a communication strategy, which is great. I think hopefully the session should help you just make a few minor tweaks and sort of reflect back, go back to your strategy and reflect on how you can make it more concrete and make it more measurable. Yeah. And for the second question, I'm just really happy to see that everyone's, I think 71% organizations have their communication strategy aligned with their organizational goals, which is one of the most important things, and it sort of helps you measure your, the success of comms better. Great. Okay, so I'm going to end the poll now. So here are our results. Yeah. Great. Just going to share them just for you to see. Okay, great. So moving to our step 1. Thank you so much for your responses. We move to our step 1. Okay. I think one of the most important aspects of sort of working on your comms strategy is going back to your organizational goals. Anything that we're doing in comms is to support our organization achieve what they want to achieve, right, for the particular year. So I think what is really important is we go back to our organizational goals and try to have those tangible goals in our comms strategy as a starting point. So this is just a few examples I've put here. You could be having 3 to 4 goals, but I've just put a few common goals I think that would be consistent for all you organizations. One is enabling your organization to raise an X amount of sum for the particular year. Goal 2 would be attracting high quality quality talent, primarily volunteers. So every NGO is always looking for high quality talent, and of course volunteers throughout the year. So how can we see that we sort of bring in that kind of attract that kind of talent to our organization? And I think organizations, and our third goal is to sort of, for example, if you have like a goal of 5 partnerships and collaborations across the sector. Now, organizations, especially nonprofits, thrive when they sort of have partnerships and collaborations with other organizations. And how do we communicate out there that this is the kind of, when you're looking for a potential partnership for something, how can you put it out there through your communications that you're looking for a partner or a collaborator to work with on a certain project? So if this is your organizational goal, then try to reflect that in the comms and the messaging that you have. Davina, can we move to the slide 2? Thank you. Great. Okay. So once we have our goals in place, and we need to map the stakeholders for each of these goals, right? So we need, our communications has to be very targeted to our specific audience. So every goal has a certain amount of stakeholders that we need to target. So can we map all of them? And here I've just taken an example of the goal 2, which is sort of attracting high quality talent and primarily volunteers. So who are the stakeholders that we're going to target for this? So we're going to target current employees and volunteers. If we're going to target alumni, volunteers, and employees, if they have any recommendations for us. Potential talent, if someone is going through our social media or our website, all our career opportunities on our website. Are we having affiliations with universities and colleges, newly graduates, or college students who have a internship program built in? Are we targeting them? Those corporates, if you want really high skilled talent, whether we're looking for to work on a particular OD area, can we sort of partner with corporates, expat groups, clubs, fellowships, board members? Can our board members, recommend potential candidates? Also volunteering platforms. So platforms like Connect4, can we optimize those platforms with our communications to be able to get the right kind of stakeholders? Another thing to keep in mind while you are mapping our stakeholders is that it's important to know which of, through our data, it's important to know where most of our volunteers come from, right? Is it from our past employees, from our past volunteers, and sort of to optimize those stakeholder communications even more if there's a particular stakeholder that's sort of bringing us more talent, right? So we have to be having enough data to be able to evaluate, which stakeholder we should be targeting more. Davina, can I request you to go to the next slide, please? Great. Step 3 is identifying stakeholder categories. Now, we have mapped our stakeholders for each goal, right? Now we need to be a little more descriptive of what our profiles look like, of our stakeholders. Now, if you were creating a message for your stakeholder, it's important for us to know who are we targeting to. And for that, it's important to do a little bit of a stakeholder profiling. When you're saying, your stakeholder is a potential talent candidate who wants to move into the social sector, really, what does that description look like? Sorry, Davina. Okay. Worries. Okay. What does that? So, if there are particular attributes, particular qualities that you're looking in, a potential volunteer or a potential recruit, can you write a descriptive so you know who you're targeting? So for one of our stakeholder categories, it's a driven individual who's inclined to work in the social tech sector and is looking for an opportunity to learn, right? So that's more descriptive, so we know how to sort of message this. Davina, can we move to step 4? Great. Okay, messaging. Attracting. So messaging is again very important. Something that I've really observed over time is that we focus a lot on creating content, and we don't really know what is the message that we're trying to give. If you're putting something out there on our social media or through our newsletter, say for example, you're sending a quarterly newsletter, a particular quarter goal is to sort of have more donors for a crowdfunding campaign. So is your newsletter talking about your work in a way that attracts more donors to give money, right? So, or for example, the example that I've given in this is for goal 2, attracting high quality talent and primary volunteers. Whatever your content that you're creating, what is the message that you want to give out? So here we're looking at, and I'm going to take Atma's example. So message 1, we're looking at Atma is a great place to work in the social sector. Good work culture focused on employee well-being, great work environment, opportunities to learn and grow. That's message 1. And message 2 is Atma gives you the opportunity to work on a wide variety of social problems. We work closely with 20 NGOs leaders each year, engage with 500 plus NGOs through knowledge platforms, and provide capacity building support across 9 OD areas. So when you're looking at a potential candidate, I think the most important thing is looking for a job is to see the work culture and to see the career growth, the learning curve that they would have in a particular job. So are we putting those messages out there to showcase the kind of work environment your organization has, and also the kind of learning opportunities, work opportunities that they would get in their role at a particular organization? Great. Step 5. Content. Okay, so we have from our goals, we've been able to sort of map our stakeholders, also create stakeholder categories and profiles, and then sort of we've moved to messaging. And what our messaging helps us is to create content, right? So for example, the message 1, which talks about Atma being a great workplace, what is the kind of content that you can put out there to showcase that Atma is a great place to work at? So, you could showcase the type of content, and I'm just giving a few examples here, but I'm sure there is a laundry list of things that you could do. Employee and volunteer features. You sort of take testimonials from your employees, your volunteers, showcasing, the kind of experiences that they have, ask them to talk about their experience, the culture that they've experienced at Atma or in your organization, asking your ex-employees to give, to write testimonials. This sort of helps a potential candidate see that, for your ex-employee, the kind of experience that they've had at Atma, whereas their career trajectory taken them to, where are they working now? What are the potential career possibilities after working at your organization? So just so that someone is inspired to be able to choose a career path where they see progress. Another thing that we want to show is a healthy environment to work in, an organization to have a healthy work environment. So I'm sure every single organization is doing team learning sessions, team interactive sessions, wellness sessions. I think we did a lot of them during the pandemic. We want to give out the message that our organization cares for the people who work for them. So what are we doing for our organization? We're doing a number of sessions, well-being sessions, where, the number of activities that we're doing. Can we put that out there on our social media, on our newsletters, not only just to showcase the kind of culture that we have, but also to set a benchmark for other organizations to learn from. So I'll just give you a little example. During the second wave, Atma went into a slowdown. We had a number of well-being sessions that were planned and activities that we were doing, a number of measures that we were taking for our team members during a really tough time. We sort of created a little newsletter and sent it to all our stakeholders, not just our donors, but also other organizations, for them to not just know what we're doing, but also really take it as an example for them to do something similar, or to rethink about the culture of their organization. So this and message two, again, we're trying to showcase the kind of opportunities, career opportunities, work opportunities that you get at a particular organization by working there. So the content that you can create is have social media employee takeover, so just showcase an employee showcasing what their day looks like in the life of say an Atma consultant, the number of meetings, the number of interactions that they have, the team meetings that they're part of, what are the different projects that they're working on. Again, employee testimonials, promoting the career opportunities that you have, in your organization. This is the different kind of content that you can create. And of course, you can get more creative with it. Divina, can I please request you for step 6? Great. Okay. So now we're moving towards platforms. And I think this is a very important aspect. And I think this is something that Atma also has been reevaluating, of the kind of platforms that we're using, the kind of mediums that we're using for communications. So we essentially feel that a social media platform is a good to have, our website is a good to have, our newsletters, our monthly newsletters, our quarterly reports are good to have. That's great. It's always good to do, to have all our good to haves. But I think what happens with nonprofits is there's so much that you can do in communications, but of course the resources and the time is limited, right? So then it's really important for you to reevaluate your platforms and see, these are my 3 goals that I want to achieve through my communications. For example, say, you want to recruit more talent. It's important to go back to your recruitment team, to your HR team, ask them, which of these platforms are attracting the most amount of talent? Is it the website? Is it the search engine, the Google AdWords that you're creating, or is it word of mouth, or is it the newsletter? Whatever platforms that are working, can we optimize those platforms? For example, if website is where most of our applications come from, can we optimize the information or the careers page on our website, see that we're sort of changing the career opportunities and updating them as frequently as possible? We're trying to sort of showcase more of the opportunities and what is it for our potential employees to have a career in your organization. So are we sort of optimizing them? If Google AdWords is one of them, then I'm sure a lot of you nonprofits have the Google grant of AdWords. Are we optimizing our keywords enough to be able to sort of get more potential recruits to our website page, to our careers page? So it's really important for us to evaluate the platforms. I see a lot of people and organizations focus their energy a lot on the social media, and social media is very time consuming, and it has to be more consistent and regular. But I think what's really important is for us to see, what is our outreach like on social media? Do we have an X amount of followers? Is this limited? Can we sort of tie up or collaborate with other platforms where we can have a larger outreach? Are we spending too much time on a platform which doesn't have that much of an outreach? So I think it's really important for us to evaluate all the platforms that we have, so we have the maximum amount of outreach. So yes, that's the step 6. I think these are one of all the, these are like the step-by-step processes in which sort of you can create a concrete strategy. And I think if your strategy is more goal-oriented, I think it's easy for us to measure whether our communications, with the amount of effort and time that we're putting into our communications, is sort of resulting into sort of a certain amount of donation, a certain amount of recruits, a certain kind of quality of recruits. So that's it from my end. We have another 30 minutes for questions, and I would be happy to answer your questions. So do put them in the chat box.
Hey, can I unmute and just ask my question?
Yeah,
Is that
sure.
fine? I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about how do we, sorry, I'll turn on my video as well so that you can. Uh, okay, I was wondering can you talk a little bit on how do we engage volunteers to sort of um, work on the communications? But like when you're saying that, a lot of organizations cannot afford to even hire a full-time staff for communications. Um, but if there is a strategy in place, how do you engage volunteers? And volunteers will come for short period of time, right? They'll come and go. So how do you keep them engaged? How do you engage them on these messagings and this strategy and ensure that the strategy is being followed while your volunteers will come and go? Could you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. Thank you so much, Rena, for your question. Yes, I think you've really highlighted this well. We do have shortage of resources in nonprofits to be able to sort of hire full time. And sometimes one full time is never enough for the amount of work that communications really has. I think for this, what's really important is to put really concrete communication systems in place, whether it's the branding, the branding guidelines, the templates. A really concrete strategy that I'm talking about is, for each quarter, I think every organization has a particular goal that they're sort of focusing more towards, right? Maybe one particular quarter you're running a crowdfunding campaign, and so that's like your focus, like fundraising is your focus. Then is there a team member who is aligned with, who's worked on the communication strategy, can align the volunteer on what that particular focus for that quarter is, and what is the messaging that they need to concentrate, and leave the content brainstorming on the volunteer. And I think that's a really good thing, because volunteers, fresh minds bring more perspective, they bring more innovative ideas. So you're on track with your organizational goal and the message that you're trying to give, because that's something that you've already sort of like put in concrete in your strategy. And what you're really asking a volunteer to come in is run specific campaigns to help you with particular goals, or achieving particular goal for the quarter. Whether it's the volunteers coming for 3 months, then can you ask them to create a campaign that sort of helps you raise funds, or supports the communications for a crowdfunding campaign, right? So really being specific in what is it that you want to concentrate on in that particular quarter, and what is the content that they can create to give out a certain message. I think that's really important. I hope that answers your question, Rena.
Certainly. Thank you so much.
Great. Okay, so we have a few questions. Okay.
Hi, Riva, do you need me to
Yes.
share? Yeah,
Yes.
I just got thrown out of the meeting. So
Sorry. Davina, do you want to sort of lead me on the questions, or should I look at the chat box, whatever you prefer? Oh, we lost her again.
Okay, let me ask these questions from the chat box.
Yeah, I can't see the chat box.
Riva, the question one of the persons is asking is, do you think Twitter is the right platform to share an organization's work?
I think Twitter, personally, for us, at least Atma, has its limitations with the kind of work that we want to showcase, the kind of information that we want to put out there. I think I personally see Twitter as someone with a face, someone who is more giving opinions. It's sort of putting what you feel out there. And when you're representing an organization, I think it's very difficult to sort of take those stands on different issues and things. So I think for me, I don't think Twitter is the best platform. We personally don't put in too much of our energy on Twitter. Should we go ahead with the next question? Could you suggest some free accessible softwares we can use to evaluate individual social media platforms. Also, any for content cross-platform evaluation. We currently use only the data that we get because the Facebook analysis, the insights, the Instagram insights and LinkedIn insights are very, very useful. If you're sort of using, if you're sending in newsletters, then MailChimp is another great platform, gives you enough insights on the conversion, the open rates. So we use these platforms, but I do know
there
are a few platforms, I can't recollect the names right now, where you can sort of it can post, the platform can post a number of content on a number of platforms, and then also give you insights on how that content is doing on each platform. And I can't really recollect the name right now. Can I please get back to you regarding the name for that?
Okay, I'm going to request you all to just help us here. Since I got thrown out of the meeting, I think I missed most of the questions. So can I just request those of you who have questions to unmute yourself and just ask those questions? I'm sorry about this. I know some of you all had posted those on the chat box, but is anybody who wants to?
Also, another thing, just to add to our last question, I just Googled it just to remember the name. It's called Later. I've used it in the past. I think that's a great place to sort of, put in your content on different platforms, and then it gives you sort of an insight. But it's a paid, to get the insights, it's a paid platform to get those insights. So I think that's a little steep in terms of their prices, but it depends on your comfort level spending that money.
Okay, I see a few questions, Riva. Just let me know if these have been answered or not. So there's Bella who's asking, could you tell us which social media is the most effective in India? So Bella is one of our volunteers from Brazil. I think that's why. So what, according to you, is the most effective social media platform?
Thank you, Isabella, for the question. I think hands down Facebook. The outreach of Facebook is way beyond. I know we always talk about Instagram, and because a lot of us have moved past Facebook now, but the maximum amount of outreach is on Facebook. The user database for Facebook is huge. So I would say Facebook is still the right platform. It depends. I think each platform, if there is a specific goal that you want to achieve, then every platform is sort of distinct for that. But if you're trying to look at, to target more donors, then I think Facebook is the right platform. Also, Instagram and all these other social, the newer social media platforms, the age bracket is sort of 30 and below, and I think a lot of potential donors are sort of at the age bracket of sort of 30 to 50 to 60. So I think Facebook is the best platform to answer your question.
Right, I see Christina has a question. How do we get all staff and stakeholders stay consistently aligned to the comm strategy or the plans, which is significant to achieve the org goals?
I think that's very interesting. I think it's very difficult to get all the team members to be aligned to sort of, and I think that's where the communications consultant or a volunteer plays a big role, is because it needs to be initiated, right? The comms, the creating of content, I think it should be initiated by a specific person in charge. Of course, it's a group effort, sort of the content, we are depending on the content from all the program leads, to be able to create that kind of content. But I think one specific person in the team to be in charge of comms is sort of necessary, whether it's someone who's playing multiple hats in the same organization, but the fact that they are sort of leading comms is super important to keep all the team in sync with the comms activities. Can
Okay, so, sorry, go ahead.
Okay, can communication, Sinika was asking, can communications goals be different from organizational goals? Yes and no, right? Good question to ask. Not all your communications goals, I mean, would be aligned with your organizational goals. You might have a few extras, and that's okay. But I think what really is important for any organization is to have communication support them in what they want to achieve. I think that is the primarily the focus of why communications, all that effort that's been put into communications. So you must see to it that all the organization goals are a part of the communication strategy. That's very important. And then you can have a few extra comms goals, which are which are not part of the organizational strategy.
Okay, there's another question. What's the most convenient platform to host a website, which is not static and we can edit ourselves?
I think WordPress is great. I personally find Wix really useful. I like the the amount of options you get in terms of like the graphic changes that you get on a Wix website are great. Also, they aren't too expensive. Their monthly rates aren't too bad to host your website. So I would personally suggest Wix. I know there are a lot of people who like WordPress, and our organization has we manage WordPress usually, and we have an AMC who sort of like looks into the maintenance of the website. But if it was for me to individually edit it, then I would say Wix.
There's another question. How can we get our immediate stakeholders, staff, trustees, clients to stay engaged? I think it's the similar to what was asked earlier. So how do you get immediate stakeholders to stay engaged with the strategy, the comm strategy?
I think it's really understanding for I just like to understand the question again. Is it to get engaged in your organization or in the comm strategy?
No, for the organization to be behind our strategy. So I have great difficulty, even if it's a staff member's webinar, for them to even comment or like or share the communication that I've put out to the world. So that's an area that I really struggle with.
Ellen, I totally understand what you go through in this. I think from our end, we do a number of learning sessions where I talk about the work that I'm doing at comms and sort of build that excitement in our team members to be involved in the comms that we're doing. But having said that, I think every team member has their own comfort level with social media, if that's what you're sort of looking at, in terms of posting and sharing. And I think there is a limit to which we can request our team members to sort of post and share and engage, depending on their comfort levels. But I think what's really important is that we don't keep comms as a separate piece of work that we're doing. We keep them updated about what is it that we're doing. Another good way is to probably tag them. So if there's someone who's really active and has an outreach, if they can, if you can tag them in the post and ask them to reshare it. But I think there is like a thin line of where you can motivate your staff to do it, but it can't sort of
we tried all of that, but just maybe involving an onset of projects and things like that, making it as part of the remit. Okay, thank you.
Helen, another thing that is important is, I think just having staff perspective. I think every year I do try to sort of have one-to-one conversations with each of our staff members to give me feedback on the comms, as well as like give me a few ideas of content. And I feel like that's where I think, you know, you can spark some enthusiasm in your team members to be a part or initiate something, is when they feel like, you know, their feedback or their ideas are sort of like taken in.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we do that, and we've just started with any new members of staff as part of their induction. There's an hour-and-a-half session on social media communication. So it's just, I think because everybody is so busy, and the current marketplace, everybody has to wear more than one hat now. Our working hours have changed. The amount of time we're on a screen has changed. So the whole mindset towards something that previously was fun is, you know, it's like, oh gosh, another thing that I have to do, even though I say it just takes like 2 minutes of your time just to, you know, log on and just hit that heart, or, you know, make a quick comment, just give a thumbs up. It still seems an uphill battle. And, you know, we're trying to get engagement, we're trying to spread awareness, and our followers are kind of, we've kind of maybe hit our top end. I hate to think that we have, because I'd like a lot more, but I just think our pool here in Goa is quite small as well. So, you know, just feel like I'm hitting a brick wall.
I think another thing that can help in this is sort of, you know, if you can have collaborations and partnerships with, you know, a few influencers or people who have that kind of outreach,
yeah,
to be in their followers. You know, if you can sort of get in touch with a few influencers, have a collaborative with them, or a partnership of some sort in content. I think that's a good way of sort of like opening a new set of you know.
Yeah. Lovely. Thank you so much.
Thank you,
We have a couple more questions. If we are an NGO working with a government organization on a particular project, can we develop a specific communication strategy for the same? So I think there are multiple questions about what sort of a strategy should one look at developing when they're working with the government in whatever capacity.
Right. Okay. Yes, I think, again, it sort of takes you back on, like, if you are creating this comm strategy, you know, that you're working, you know, you have your programs aligned with the government, then what are you trying to achieve through that strategy? Again, are you trying to get more government partnerships? Are you sort of, it sort of depends on what you're trying to do. So I would say that it doesn't need to be a separate strategy, and it needs to be a goal in itself, which has like sub goals and like messaging, you know, different messagings within that. I don't think it needs to be a separate strategy for a government. Just if you and I think, you know, I think there are some limitations also for the kind of work that you can showcase when you're doing a program with the government. Then really trying to sort of have them aligned on the kind of communications that you're putting out there. If you're trying to sort of target more government officials, you know, to have a wider outreach, I think, again, Facebook is the right place to be able to do that. You know, that's where most of the engagement happens. So I think what needs to change is like the goals and the different platforms you can do it on, not the strategy still needs to, you know, can be one organizational strategy.
Riva, we got this before this session. I don't know if this was covered, which is what kind of posts should, what kind of posts need to go in different social media handles. So essentially the nature of communication that goes out differs from platform to platform. So if you want to talk a little bit about that, though I see more questions coming in. So, yeah.
Great. Okay. So again, as we have had this session today about really the approach of thinking about why are we posting something on a particular social media handle, right? And then also reevaluating on what are the platforms that are really working for us. We have to also measure, like, is it Facebook that's bringing us? So for example, for say, if recruitment is your goal, then maybe LinkedIn is the right place to do it. Maybe Facebook has a higher outreach, so that is the right place to do it. So I think what you really need to focus on is what, in terms of like social media management, is that what you want to achieve through your goal. And then your platforms and the messaging and the content that you create will sort of fall in place once you sort of have clarity on like the goal that you have set out for yourself for a particular quarter. Like for example, if you're running crowdfunding campaign and you want to have a wider outreach to new donors, go back to your previous crowdfunding campaigns data, see where most of your donors have come from. Has it come from like emailer outreach, from your database? Has it come from social media? You will exactly get the right statistics to be able to focus on the right platforms. I could of course offhand say, okay, Facebook sort of works better for this and this, but that is more of a generic a recommendation. But it's important to go back into your data, because you have a certain set of followers that certain posts work from and certain do. You need to go back to your sort of insights and see which platform is reacting better to a certain kind of post and content. So just go back and reevaluate that.
Can we take one more question?
Of course.
Yeah, I think Shaunak has a question. Shaunak, it's a really long one. Can I invite you to actually unmute and
yes.
Yeah. Okay, great.
Sorry, I just had a couple of questions. One was, we've actually seen more conversion over email. So just how do we also build that habit with the audience over social media? I mean, our assumption is that it might be the seriousness of the platform that's actually inviting more people to click on opportunities over email rather than going on the link in bio, say, for Instagram. So that was the first one. And maybe I can go to the next few after each one.
So just to register your question in my head, it's how can you increase call to action conversions over social media? Because we have seen more success over email platform. I think what really helps in terms of social media is sort of instead of one-off posts that you're creating, really creating a campaign. If there's a particular call for action that you're trying to, a newsletter is a great opportunity where you get sort of the space to be able to put all your messaging out in one newsletter, in a concrete newsletter, to give out that message or the call, to request for the call to action that you're giving. Whereas social media sort of has its limitations, and also in terms of the scrolling time that people spend, and the attention span of people on social media really varies from someone who's opening an email and who's inclined to read it. So say, for example, you have a particular call to action. I think it would be important, in my opinion, to sort of nail it into your so have a campaign over a period of time instead of just having one post. Because if you're depending on that one post to sort of have reaction to your call for action, it might be missed. It might not be the right time. People use social media for, as just spending time, whiling away their time sometimes. So not that they're the most attentive. So can we sort of do it over a period of time and nail the messaging in to be able to get the call for action very clear? That's something that I would suggest. Does that make sense? Shaunak, is that
Yes. Thank you so much. My next question is just how do we drive an online community with our audience over social media or any other platform? How do we build that sense of community through our comm strategy?
Right. What kind of online communities are you talking about?
So, for example, in in the work that I'm doing, I'm trying to build an online community on our website where we're trying to get signups and have people really engage and talk to one another. So there is a landing page where we want to take everyone and sort of build that community towards change making. So then, how do we sort of say, like, what would that messaging or what would that strategy need to look like to be able to have everyone believe in that sense of change making?
I think what would be really important is to sort of look at the, sorry. Okay, sorry. What would be really important is to really understand the profiling of your first A is who are you trying to target and what does that profiling look like, right? So if there's a particular online community that you're trying to this, there are certain attributes, there is a certain, there's a certain, you can be a little more descriptive about, identify the description of the profile that you're trying to target. And then obviously then target your messaging around it. Have you been able to sort of create a profiling of what kind of members do you want as a part of your online community? Hannah?
Yeah, I think it's mostly kids in the teen age or somewhere around, say, first year of college, who are really working on, like, student leadership is our core part that we're driving for. So that is the kind of kids that we want to bring on board and have them share their ideas with each other.
Great. So then I think what would be helpful is sort of, creating a survey, looking at your existing community members, looking at what is exactly that motivates them to be a part of this online community. What kind of, what do they do? What does the profiling look like? And then be able to create that kind of messaging to get, to drive, one of the most important aspects is really to understand your audience well. And then also have a proper engagement plan in place with clear call for actions for each of the engagements that you're doing, just so that you know what is the receptive rate like for each of these engagements. Are each of your activities working? Is a particular activity or piece of communications attracting more are more members more engaged with a particular activity? Really having more data around it to be able to sort of work on the activities or communications that are sort of garnering more audience towards your online community.
Got it. Thank you so much. And this is the last question from my side is, I've been struggling with this for a while, is just how do you adapt meme, because meme type content is working really well on social media and a lot of for-profits have gone really far with it, but it's a bit of a struggle with a non-profit to bring in that kind of content. So do you have any suggestions? Just how do we go about that?
Right. Okay. Saurabh, I can't really help you. Shaunak, I can't really help you. Sorry, because we don't have any meme kind of content. I think the kind of work that we do, the kind of stakeholders that we're sort of targeting, I don't think that sort of that kind of audience works well with what we're attracting. I know you're part of Teach for India, and sort of you are attracting the youth. That's one of your important stakeholders, that aspirational youngsters who want to sort of be a part of the social sector. Unfortunately, I have no answer for this response. I'm so sorry about that.
No worries. Thank you so much.
All right. I know there are a few more questions coming in. We're at time. Can I request all of y'all just to mail these questions to us, and we'll make sure that Riva responds to these questions. Yeah. Okay.
Thank you so much, everyone. Sorry, we've missed quite a few questions here.
Yes.
Apologies. Send me an email. I'll be happy to sort of take that offline.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Thank you so much, everyone, for logging in, for joining and sharing and just making it so interactive. can I request all of you all to please fill in a feedback form? That will really help us understand, well, how well have we done? Yeah, thank you so much. And we'll all stay in touch. Have a good day.
Thank you.